Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to 14 Divine Guides. Before I introduce my guest, I would like to send our condolences to the Imam of our time, Al-Mahdi Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. May Allah hasten his reappearance. And the Islamic Ummah, my dear viewers, brothers and sisters, on the martyrdom of Lady Fatima al-Zahra, peace and salutations be upon her. I would like to welcome my guest. He is Sayed Zafar Abbas Naqwi. He needs no introduction. He has been on the channel on various shows. He has completed his academic studies here in the UK, achieving masters in a degree in politics. He also spent time in the Hawza, the seminary of Al-Najaf Al-Ashraf, where he studied in the holy city of Najaf near the shrine of Imam Ali. So we are blessed to have with us today for the show dedicated to Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, Sayed Zafar Abbas. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi.
Thank you for joining us, Sayyid, on this show, inshallah. Today we are starting a new chapter on the show with the life of Imam al-Hasan, having completed lessons and lives and the tragedy of Fatima al-Zahra salamullahi alayha. Inshallah, today we will start by looking at the life of Imam al-Hasan. As usual, I usually ask my guest and I obviously myself, again, the book that I'm using for those of you who would like to do further reading is The Life of Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba by Baqir Sharif al-Qarashi. This book has been translated into English. This is the book obviously that we're using for. And Sayyid, would you like to just the book, so inshallah for people that want to do further reading on the life of Imam al-Hasan?
Yes, this is the book Sulh al-Hasan by Sheikh Radi Yasin, also been translated into English, focusing more on the peace treaty. Very good read about the Imam.
Thank you very much, Sayyid. Of course, inshallah, we will from next week try and take your calls. You can email your questions into us, and inshallah we will address them today. Inshallah, we will try and look at a brief summary. Of course, there isn't enough time to look at the whole life of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam in one episode. We'll start by looking, of course, even though we've done an episode on both Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra, at his parents, the fact that he comes from a noble lineage, his father being Imam Ali and his mother being Fatima al-Zahra.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Yes, of course, Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, amongst his many honors is of course that he's the eldest son, the first born of Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam and Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha. And of course they themselves require no introduction as in of themselves. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, of course, being the foremost in the religion of Islam, the closest to the Holy Prophet, his best and most adherent, if you like. And Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha, the rahmah and the mercy to the one who is sent as a mercy to all of creation. And in that regard, of course, they require no introduction, but it's a useful insight and a useful place to start from, because it shows us the level and the upbringing and the household in which Imam Hassan ﷺ comes, and therefore his character, his exemplary life and the lessons that we get from it should come as no surprise. The fact that he's come in such a amazing and grand household, the best household that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained everybody to follow and to take as an example, shows that this is the best household that is possible, and Imam Hassan alayhi salam is the first fruit and the first born in that particular household.
Thank you very much, Sayyidina. Of course, his birth is on the 15th of Ramadan, the month of giving, the month of Ramadan, and that is, I think, one of his characters that he was from those that gave in the way of Allah, and he was Kareem Ahlulbayt, the generous.
Indeed, he comes in the holy month of Ramadan, and in fact certain narrations state that it is on this particular day of the 15th of the holy month of Ramadan when he's born that the commandment for fasting is actually revealed. So up until this point, the Muslims had not yet been commanded to fast in the holy month of Ramadan, and it is on the day that he arrives that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places the commandment for fasting in the holy month of Ramadan in his honor. And yes, indeed, as you say, it's the month of giving that we're very well aware about, and he's called Kareem Ahlul Bayt, which I think is a very important title, because if you think about the fact that if there is a particular characteristic that is well known and prevalent amongst a particular group of people, and yet within that group a person is specifically distinct for that characteristic, that shows that he's particularly special. I mean, if there's a group of people who are unremarkable generally, and you call one of them generous, then that would demonstrate, or that would signify the fact that this is an unremarkable group of people, and this one person is generous. But if there's a family whom, if we look back to the beginning of this family tree, to whom this family tree is attributed to, when we say Banu Hashim, and we speak of Hashim, who is the great grandfather of the Holy Prophet of Islam, who's called Hashim for the reason that he's generous. He used to break the bread and give it out to people. Then you've got Abdul Muttalib, who's also famed for his generosity. Then you have Abu Talib, who is equally well known for being a generous person. Then the Holy Prophet of Islam. And then amongst all these people, if you've got somebody who's then called Kareem Ahlul Bayt, if someone who's not just generous but is so generous. So I mean, if you've got someone amongst all these people, this massive group of people flying from Hashim, who's known as someone who used to break the bread, through to the Holy Prophet of Islam and Abdul Muttalib and Abu Talib in between, and then if someone amongst this group of people and this family is called Kareem Ahlul Bayt, shows that really their generosity, their giving, the fact that they are so honorable to people is something that's really stands out as a characteristic. And I think that it shows as a testament to Imam Hassan alayhi salatu salam's actions throughout the Holy Prophet's life, throughout his father's life, and then throughout his imamate, as something that is really and truly standing out as a characteristic.
Of course, the Prophet would welcome the news of the birth of Imam Al-Hasan. He read Iqama and Adhan, and the right and left is respectively of the Imam. And then the naming of Al-Hasan. How did this name come about, and what's the meaning behind Hasan?
So yes, as is famously known for all the children of Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam, that when they were born, or at least those who during the lifetime of the Holy Prophet of Islam, when they were born, the Holy Prophet of Islam would go and visit on that particular day, and he asks Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam. And of course, this whole exercise is not in a way to try and find out or to know, because Amirul Mu'minin knows and the Holy Prophet knows, but it's a way to show us how much reverence Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam has for the Holy Prophet of Islam. That when the Holy Prophet comes and he asks Amirul Mu'minin, he says, Ya Ali, have you named your son? And Amirul Mu'minin says, Ya Rasulullah, how could I precede you in this matter? He's showing us that this is how much reverence, how much respect I have for the Holy Prophet of Islam, that I haven't even done something that is a right for me, in the sense that I'm the father of the child, but yet I'm still allowing the Holy Prophet of Islam to take precedence in this particular thing, and I could not feel that I should do this while the Holy Prophet of Islam was there. And then the Holy Prophet of course replies saying, Ya Ali, how could I precede Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this particular matter? And then Jibreel comes down and he says that, Ya Rasulullah, you have said in a narration, Ya Ali, anta minni bimanzilati Harun min Musa illa annahu la nabiyya ba'di, that there's, you are to me in the same way as Harun was to Musa, and therefore Harun had 3 sons and you too will have 3 sons, and the first one was called Shubbar, so you should name him after that son of Harun alayhi salam. And the Holy Prophet of Islam says to Jibreel, he says that this is a name that is in a language that is unfamiliar to me, it's not from my language, so I would like to have a name which is in Arabic. And Jibreel says that the name Shubbar translated into Arabic is Hassan. Of course, one of the most remarkable things about this is that despite the fact that Shubbar was the name of Harun's son, nobody in the Arab world prior to Imam Hassan alayhi salam had been called Hassan.
Hassan, he was the first.
And he's the first one to be called Hassan, and he's named by the Holy Prophet of Islam. And of course, this is a particularly great honor, because the word Hassan, or the term Hassan, the descriptive word Hassan, was used in the Arabic language, and we can see it in the pre-Islamic times. But as a name, it had never been used because it was seen as a characteristic, Hassan being the beautiful one. And therefore, nobody had ever thought of Hassan as a name. Whereas perhaps the insight into naming Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam as Hassan is to show that he is beautiful in every way. In fact, there are certain narrations that discuss that he's beautiful in every way. That he's beautiful in the way that he looks, as in physically he's beautiful, but also his character will be beautiful. Because Allah and the Prophet know that there will come a time where his character will come under attack, where some of the enemies will attack his character. So I've called him Hassan already to tell you that not only does he look beautiful, but his character will be the most beautiful. His actions will be the most beautiful. He will be Hassan in every respect. And that, we've used a descriptive word to give him as a name, to show that this description encompasses his whole character. His whole life is encompassed within his name.
Thank you very much. Of course, also it's important to mention that his kunya was Abu Muhammad. Again, this was something that was given to him by the Prophet. Other names that he has are Al-Sibt, Al-Zaki, Al-Mujtaba, Al-Sibt meaning the grandson, Al-Zaki, the pure, Al-Mujtaba, the chosen, As-Sayyid, the master, as he was called, Sayyid Shababi Ahlil Jannah, him and his brother Imam Al-Hussein. Also important, I think, to mention that this is something beautiful that was done by the Prophet for both Imam Hassan and Hussein, is that he would shave the hair of his blessed grandsons, and the weight of the hair would be given to the poor, as I think compared to silver would be given to the poor, silver or gold in both cases. And this was done by the Prophet. Again, I think it's important to mention these because these show the love the Prophet had for Imam Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein, as the famous hadith says, Sayyidai Shababi Ahlil Jannah, Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein. We'll come to that inshallah, about the narrations said about Imam Hassan and Hussein further on in the show, but inshallah we'll try and mention a few stories about the upbringing of Imam al-Hasan and al-Hussein. Of course, we know that Imam al-Hasan did witness or was present. I'm not saying he was there present, but he was there at the time of Al-Ghadir al-Khum. So he must have heard of Ghadir. He must have known that his father was to succeed the Prophet. He was there at the demise of the Holy Prophet. He witnessed also the tragedy of Fatima Zahra, and this all in the space of we're talking the Hijjah up until Safar, the martyrdom of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 28th of Safar, and then 75 days or 95 days after that, the martyrdom of Fatima Zahra, and this all in the space of 4 to 5 months. He's seen all this, and obviously it must have affected him, being at such a young age.
I think it's very interesting that you mentioned the event of Al-Ghadir, because there's certain narrations which state that when the Holy Prophet of Islam announced the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam at Ghadir, and he then set up the tent after the announcement and ordered every single person to come and greet the Imam with this title, Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, and pledge their allegiance. He had, in certain narrations, it states that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam were also present in the 10th there, and the Holy Prophet had ordered them to give allegiance to them as well, in the sense that after Amir al-Mu'minin salam, these two would follow. So very much Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, both of them being aware of the situation going on. And yes, as you say, the incident of the oppression towards their mother and the passing away of the Holy Prophet, and then later on, of course, her own passing away, all happens when Imam Hassan alayhi salam is at the most 8 years old. So of course it is a very difficult time for any 8-year-old to go through so many difficult tragedies together. And I think it really is a testament to both Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain that despite them going through this difficult time when they're very young, they're able to lead a life which is full of so many lessons for us, in the sense that they're showing us that, look, we went through all these difficulties and calamities when we were young, and yet despite that we overcame those difficulties, and we led lives in such a way, in a relatively normal way, in the way that we grew up, we got married, we had children, and we gave you all the examples of how to live. And I think even as a very important lesson from this particular moment in Imam Hassan's life, to show us that, when you go through difficult times, then you can take inspiration and strength from the fact that they went through the difficult times, and that you can still build your life even after going through these kinds of difficult times.
Thank you very much. Another point that I wanted sort of to bring up is the fact that by witnessing these, he noticed that his rights from a young age were being taken away, with the first right being the right of the imamate of his father, then having his mother go through those oppressions. And in some stories, when one of the attacks happened, Imam Hassan was present. He saw what his mother went through, and but the Imam also went through a similar oppression later on. Inshallah, we'll speak about this with Muawiyah. What lessons might have the Imam got from these 8 years or 9 years seeing all this, and the fact that in the Sahih books they do consider him as a companion, obviously, because he saw and heard from the Prophet, and there are one or two in other schools they do mention a few hadiths narrated from the Prophet from Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. Of course we mention more.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I think it's a very important lesson, because right in the beginning and right in this early part of the Imam's life, he's able to demonstrate that there are people who, at the sign of oppression and at the sight of oppression, will remain quiet. They won't speak out against that oppression. They will not side with the right or the truth, even though they know, they realize that this what is true. They realize that something wrong is happening, but they won't side with that, and that becomes very important later on, as inshallah we'll discuss. But it also shows that, and this part of the Imam's life is actually a very important part to show that the Imam alayhi salam, by doing the peace treaty later on, that he will receive the accusations that he alayadu billah was too weak to fight, or he was a coward alayadu billah, but he's showing his bravery while he's young. There's a narrative which states that after the Holy Prophet of Islam's demise, he enters the masjid and a certain person is on the minbar, and he says, and this is again mentioned in the Sahih narratives, that a certain person is on the minbar, and he says to that person that come down from the minbar of my grandfather Rasulullah, and the person does come down, and the narrative completes by saying that the person comes down from the minbar and he embraces Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and he says, you're correct that this is the minbar of your grandfather and it is not the minbar of my grandfather. So even
it shows his strength.
Even that person, as in he's not afraid of this person being on the minbar. We would imagine that if a person's on the minbar, he's in a place of authority, he's in a place of power, and for a person to come and challenge him, let alone a child, that would be a very difficult task even in today's day and age. But Imam Hassan alayhi salam demonstrates to show his bravery, that he's not afraid to speak out when the need is there to do so. And this person acknowledges by coming down from the minbar and saying, yes, this is the minbar of your grandfather, and you have a greater right to it than I do. So I mean, all of this shows that there is an important lesson and an important foundation that Imam Hassan is laying down in his life for things that will happen later on.
Since we're mentioning his strength, did Imam Hassan take part in any wars with his father Imam Ali in history? Is it narrated that he did?
Yes, if we look at the narratives from the time of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, or from his apparent khilafat, which takes place from 36 to the 40th year after Hijrah, we see that Imam Hassan alayhi salam participates in all the battles with Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. He participates in the Battle of Jamal, he participates in the Battle of Siffin and in the Battle of Nahrawan. And of course, this is part of our aqaid. In fact, even if there's no, or the historical narratives are not as detailed, it is part of our aqaid that if an imam declares a jihad, then it's obligatory upon everyone to participate. And the fact that Imam Amir al-Mu'minin is the imam and he's declared a jihad, therefore everybody who is a follower has to participate. And it would make no sense that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein did not participate unless there was a specific reason for not doing so. Unless they had been exempted for a particular reason, as we see, for example, Imam al-Sajjad doesn't participate in the jihad of Karbala. But other than that, there's no reason for an imam, at least, to not participate in a jihad. And so, this is what I'm saying, that this is obviously part of our aqaid anyway. But there are historical narratives, even from the sources in other schools of religion of Islam, which talk particularly about the Battle of Basra, where Imam Hassan alayhi salam displays a very, a particularly severe, account of how he fights the people, and the number of people that he killed, and so on and so forth, which again are all part of the testament that he's showing, or the groundwork that he's laying to show that if there was any reason for me not to fight, then there was another reason behind it, and it was not to do with the with any kind of any reason for me being afraid or scared or not wanting to, or having no willingness to fight.
Thank you very much, Sayyidina. Inshallah, we will be going for a short break. Join me after this break, where inshallah we will speak about the honor of Imam al-Hasan with regards of that mentioned in the Holy Quran and also in Hadith by the Holy Prophet. See you in a short while. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back to 14 Divine Guides. With me, His Eminence Sayed Zafar Abbas. We are looking at the life of Imam al-Hasan. If you have just joined us before the break, we looked at the birth, the lineage, his parents, of course, Imam al-Hasan, Fatima al-Zahra, his mother, and Imam Ali, his father. And we also looked at his birth, the event of his birth. Inshallah, now we will try and look at first trying to see if, of course, we with all the infallibles, the ayah of Tathir, Surah 33, verse 33. Is Imam al-Hasan counted as part of this ayah, this verse?
So, as is well known in all the tafsir of this particular verse from all the schools in the religion of Islam, narrated by multiple narrators, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, by Salama, by Aisha, that the Holy Prophet of Islam had come to the house of Fatima al-Zahra, and then one by one each member of the Ahlulbayt came. Imam Hassan came, then Imam Hussein came, then Amir al-Mu'minin came, and then Fatima al-Zahra herself came in to the cloak, and then the Holy Prophet of Islam prayed, Allahumma inna haulai Ahlulbayti, these are my Ahlulbayt, and then the verse was revealed, which completed their purification. So Imam Hassan alayhi salam, of course, the first person to join the Holy Prophet of Islam under the Kisa. And I think one of the important things that this verse shows, and in fact all the verses show, is that Imam Hassan alayhi salam is a child at this particular moment in time, and as is Imam Hussein. But they're included in these verses to show that they aren't ordinary children. It's not, you can't compare Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein to ordinary 7-year-olds or ordinary 8-year-olds who would not be included in such high divine ranks. But that there is something special about these children. And this is what the Holy Quran and then the Holy Prophet as well are trying to impress upon Muslims that look, these are not ordinary children. There's something special about them. This is why we keep reminding you about their character, so that you remember that when they're like this, when they're children, then when they grow up, how great would they be? How great would they be as grown-ups, when as children we've given them such a great rank?
We, as for example, in our culture, usually the children, when looking at their lineage, or to say their grandfather, of course your grandfather's from your mother's side and your father's side, but usually take the sort of the surname from the side of the father. But we see in various narrations that the Prophet used to always say, these are my sons, about Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein, and describe them as his sons. And whenever we see, for example, even down the line, the Imams, Imam al-Sadiq, Imam al-Jawad, Imam al-Askari, they used to be always called Yabna Rasulullah, O sons of the Holy Prophet. Why is this? And of course in the case of Imam al-Hasan it's quite important.
Yeah, very interesting question, because you're right, and generally, even in the Arab culture of the time, and even in our culture today, that we take the lineage from the father's side, and we would say this is the father and this is the grandfather. Yet for the Holy Prophet of Islam, the Holy Prophet of Islam himself states this, that everybody on the Day of Judgment will be called out through their father's side, except for my descendants who will be called out through Fatima Zahra. They will called out through me, so it will go through Fatima Zahra, who is his daughter. And this is particularly important because the father's side of the lineage of Imam Hassan alayhi salam is also very important. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam is the first man to have a Hashimi lineage from both sides, i.e. that his father Abu Talib is from Banu Hashim, but his mother Fatima bint Asad is also from Banu Hashim. Even the Holy Prophet of Islam did not have this. The Holy Prophet of Islam from his father's side was from Banu Hashim, but from his mother's side was not. Yet Amir al-Mu'mineen from both sides, from both his maternal and paternal, are from Bani Hashim. So no doubt that Imam Hassan's paternal side is particularly important, and Abu Talib and his sacrifices for the religion of Islam and his greatness is unparalleled. The Holy Prophet of Islam acknowledged it, Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam acknowledged it. In fact, while we're on the topic, the fact that Amirul Mu'mineen goes into every single battle and introduces himself by saying, I am the son of Abu Talib Ali, to impress upon the fact that there's something special and great about my father, that I keep introducing myself in this way. Yet even not just the Holy Prophet, even Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam later on in his life, whenever he's addressing or speaking about Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, he never addresses them or never speaks of them as his own sons. He always says they are the sons of Rasulullah. There's many narratives. For example, there'll be a person who'll come and ask a question, and he will say, ask Hassan who's the son of Rasulullah, or ask Hussein who's the son of Rasulullah. Surely somebody should say, Ya Ali, they're your sons. Biologically, they're your sons. Yet you keep saying they're the sons of Rasulullah. Or when he wants to compare, he says, Hassan is the son of Rasulullah, and Muhammad al-Hanafiya is my son, or Abu al-Fadl Abbas is my son, or so on and so forth. So clearly he's making a distinction by the sons who are the sons of Rasulullah and the ones who aren't. Why? Because of the eye of Mubahala. Because in the eye of Mubahala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَقُلْ تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ Bring your sons and we'll bring our sons. And the Holy Prophet of Islam brings Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein as his sons. So what from that day onwards, Allah has made a distinction. The Holy Prophet has taken Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. From this day onwards, now regardless of the biology, regardless of the fact of which house they've grown up in, because the Quran has acknowledged them as the sons of Rasulullah in this day of Mubahala, and the Holy Prophet took them as his sons. And of course, the most important thing is that famously on the day of Mubahala, when the Holy Prophet of Islam was walking up to the place where it had been agreed for the Mubahala to take place, Abu al-Harith, who was the chief of the Najran, he said that I see faces whom if they were to order the mountains to move, they would have moved. Now, this statement is particularly important because the formation of Mubahala was that the Holy Prophet of Islam was in the front, and Imam Hassan was holding his right hand, and Imam Hussein was in his arms, and Fatima Zahra was behind him, and Amir al-Mu'minin was behind her. So the people could see who were facing them were the Holy Prophet, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein. As in Fatima Zahra was behind him, so they couldn't see Fatima Zahra, and Amir al-Mu'minin was behind her, so they couldn't see him either. So the people they immediately saw were the Holy Prophet, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein. So, but just by looking at the faces of Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, these children, they were saying, we're seeing faces that if they were to order the mountains to move, they would have left their places. So it's showing us, that they're the sons of Rasulullah, not just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to show some emotional attachment towards the emotional attachment that Rasulullah has towards them, but the fact that they're so great that when it comes to the defense of the religion of Islam, when Tawheed is being challenged and the Holy Prophet is bringing his defense of Tawheed, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein are the ones right in the front.
One more verse or surah which we should look at is Al-Ata, which was, of course, is the famous story is that Al-Hasan and Hussein were ill, and there was a nizr or a vow made by Imam Ali. And can you tell us this story?
This is a particularly important story because this whole surah is in honor and praise of the Ahlulbayt alayhim salatu salam. And there's various narratives which state the importance of reciting the surah and learning the surah and so on and so forth. And in fact, as a recitation, it is a very beautiful a surah in terms of the content of what is described in the surah. Surah number 76 of the Holy Quran, sometimes called Ad-Dahr because of the first verse, and sometimes called Al-Insan, and also sometimes called Hal-Ata because it begins with Hal-Ata. So in this particular surah, the context of the revelation of the surah is that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein become unwell, and they're unwell for a while, and so Amir al-Mu'minin and Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha make a nadhr to say that when they become well, then they will fast for 3 days. So they become, a few days later, they recover from the fever, and so they do the nadhr and they fast for 3 days. Because remember that Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam and Fatima Zahra, peace blessings be upon her, had made the nadhr. So the obligation of the fasting was only on them. Whoever makes the nadhr, they have to fulfill it. But because their parents had fasted, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, who were not included in the nadhr, also fasted. And then when they were fasting, then Fidda, who's their maid, also fasted. So all 5 of them in the house fasted for 3 days. And of course, every single day, once they would sit down to have the iftar, then somebody would knock on the door and ask for something to be given to them. And Amir al-Mu'minin would get up and give the food, and then everybody would follow suit. So, each of the days they only broke their fast with water and salt, and then the 3rd day they were all feeling very unwell because of the lack of food that they had had. And the Holy Prophet of Islam comes to visit them, and then he informs Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam of what had happened and the surah that had been revealed. What is particularly important about this story is that it is a story about Ahlulbayt alayhim salam, and the Holy Prophet of Islam, despite being present and despite being alive at this time, is not included in the nadhr. As in, he's in his own house. This takes place in the house of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. And that a whole surah is revealed about Ahlulbayt alayhim salam to show their own greatness. That no doubt the Holy Prophet of Islam is great. But let nobody be in any kind of confusion that Ahlul Bayt are great because they're related to the Prophet. or because they are the family of the Prophet. No, they're great in their own right. They're great because of their own character and because of their own greatness. And this surah is the greatest example of that. That the Holy Prophet of Islam is only is in this particular story only a messenger. He only comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen's house to deliver the fact that a surah has been revealed, because the surah has been revealed to the Prophet. But the action and the nidhr and everything that is done is all done by members of the household of Amir al-Mu'mineen, including the maid, to tell us that it's about the person who, and the character of the person, not just the family, not just the person, Fidda has been included in the verse because of her obedience and adherence to the holy household, and has showed and given hope to all of us that we can also be included in such divine favors as long as our character meets the bill.
Of course, yes. That's Surah 76. Again, as
Of the Holy
mentioned,
Quran, yes.
it's beautiful even when you read it. Surah 76, Surah Al-Dahr. I'd advise my brothers and sisters to try and actually memorize the surah. It's quite short, so it's not long. Especially the beautiful verses between, I think, 4 and 8, which mentions they give out food out of their love to the poor, the orphan, and the captive, of course. This is Imam Hassan alayhi salam, as we mentioned in the Quran. In prophetic traditions, Imam Al-Hasan is also mentioned. In the beginning of the show, I mentioned Al-Hasan wal-Husayn Sayyida Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. And there's the famous hadith where the Prophet was seen carrying Imam Al-Hasan on his shoulder, and he says, "Oh Allah, I love him and love whoever loves Imam Al-Hasan." Again, in tradition, I'll mention one or two of these inshallah before asking the question. In a tradition also mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari, Aisha narrates that the Prophet took Al-Hasan and embraced him, and then he said, "Oh Allah, this is my son and I love him, therefore love him and love those who love him." Many ahadith speak about the Prophet carrying Al-Hasan on his neck. Ayman, this mentioned by Ibn Abbas. Ayman met him and said, "You have ridden the best mount, O boy." And the Prophet here replies and says, "And he is the best rider." Subhanallah, beautiful ahadith. And there are many, of course, just in this book there's a list of over 12 narrations mentioned about Imam Al-Hasan. Again, the Prophet was giving us a lesson every time he did this. And it's important to mention, I think you touched on this, that Al-Hasan was great not only because he was related to the Prophet by blood, but he was great in his own right. And the Prophet would not do anything out of emotions. The Prophet would not do an act out of emotionally being in love, or it was actually something that he did from Allah. وَمَا يَنْطَقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. He doesn't do anything out of his own self. The importance of us loving the Ahlulbayt, I think, is the point here.
Yeah, I mean, of course, as you say, some people, some misguided souls have tried to downplay these kind of narrations, to say that, it's just a grandfather showing love towards his grandson, and it's not much of a big deal. But I think, as you say, the Holy Quran says, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ, that whatever he does is as a messenger. So it's not as if he's doing, when he's reciting verses of Quran, it's as a messenger, and then when he's doing other things, it's not as a messenger. The Quran is telling us that everything that he does, when he doesn't speak out of desire, and whatever he says is wahi, and whatever he does is as a messenger. So whatever he does, when he speaks about Imam Hassan in this way, or when he, for example, says, this is it's a very profound narration when he says that when the person comes to the Holy Prophet and says, or he comes to Imam Hassan and he says, ni'mal markab, what a great ride you have. And the Holy Prophet corrects him and he says, say ni'mal rakib, what a great rider he is. In that, everybody knows who the Holy Prophet is. Everybody recognizes the Holy Prophet. What he's saying is that recognize the one whom I've put on my shoulders. Recognize the one who deserves to be on my shoulders. That there's a specific purpose for this. Why does he not pick up every single child on his shoulders and play with them and show love towards them? Why is it only Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein that he does this for? To show that these are there will be people who will be alive to the time of the Holy Prophet. In fact, we're reminded of this as a reference point, that when in the court of Ibn Ziyad, the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is brought after the incident of Karbala, and Ibn Ziyad is poking the teeth of Imam Hussein alayhi salam with the stick. Zayd bin Arqam, who's a companion of the Holy Prophet of Islam, present in the court at that particular moment in time, reminds Ibn Ziyad of this particular incident, and he says that I saw the Holy Prophet of Islam put Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein in his lap. I saw that him put them on his shoulders. I saw him act in this way, and I heard the Holy Prophet of Islam say, Zayd ibn Arqam, companion narrates, he says, I heard the Holy Prophet of Islam say that I am leaving my grandsons to you as a trust. So is this how you dealt with the trust that the Holy Prophet of Islam left with you? Is this what you did to the to those whom the Holy Prophet of Islam had entrusted to you? So there's a real purpose behind all this whole action of the Holy Prophet of Islam, because he knows there will be companions who will survive, who will live till the time when Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein are grown up and they're martyred, and they will be able to be witness over these particular incidents. Because otherwise, how would we have ever known about these narrations when people who were willing to go out their way and kill members of Ahlulbayt? How would we find out about these narrations? But because of stories and incidences like this, where in the court of Ibn Ziyad, in the court of Yazid, there's people and companions of the Holy Prophet who are narrating these kinds of narrations, saying, we saw the Holy Prophet do this, we heard the Holy Prophet say this, we saw how the Holy Prophet of Islam dealt with these particular members of the holy household. They are becoming witnesses and recording these histories to say that this is how the Holy Prophet of Islam dealt with them when they were young, to show that this is what's going to happen to them afterwards, and this is what we're trying to highlight to you, that this is how much love I had for them, and how much love I will have for those people who will love them.
Thank you, Sayyid. If you allow me, I just want to go through a few of these narrations,
Yes.
because some of them are very touching. Inshallah, we're coming to the end of the show, the end of the part 2. Some of these are very touching and show the love that the Prophet had. Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Zubayr has narrated, saying, the most similar of the family to the Prophet to him was his beloved Al-Hasan. I saw Al-Hasan when he came and rode on the Prophet's neck while he was prostrating himself in prayer. He did not make him go down until he himself went down. I saw him bowing and opening his legs to let him go to the other side. So again, so Imam Hassan would not fall. In another hadith, it says, it has been narrated that the Prophet led the people in prayer and prostrated himself in worship for a long time. After he recited the taslim, the people asked him about why he had taken so long. He replied, this son of mine had ridden my back and I hated to make him go down quickly. This is in prayer. This one is also a nice hadith. Anas ibn Malik has narrated, Al-Hasan came into the Prophet. I wanted to pull him away, and the Prophet said to me, woe unto you, O Anas, leave my son and the fruit of my heart. Most surely whoever hurts him hurts me, and whoever hurts me hurts Allah. Again, this shows that he wasn't just doing it out of love, but whoever hurts Imam al-Hasan has hurt Allah. Again, Anas ibn Malik again narrates, Allah's Apostle Rasulullah was asked, which of your household is the most lovable to you? He said, Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein. Al-Hasan or Al-Hussein. He replied. Then he said to Fatima, call me my two sons. So he kissed them and pressed them to his chest. And there's so many ahadiths that speak about the love the Prophet had, and most of these you can find in Al-Mustadrak al-Sahihain by Al-Hakim al-Nisaburi, who's also not from our school of thought, he's from the Sunni school of thought. Another famous hadith is one he said to all, and this is Zayd ibn Arqam who mentions this. He says, I fight against one whom fight against you, and make peace with one who makes peace with you. And he's mentioned this to Imam Ali, Fatima, Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein. And I think this shows how much love the Prophet had for Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein.
Undoubtedly, you know, the love was really a way in which to highlight the importance of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein afterwards, to highlight to us that how important and how vital their lives and their character will be in the preservation of the message of the Holy Prophet of Islam. That the Holy Prophet of Islam's message will be saved, will be preserved, will be propagated through Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein will do these actions in order to preserve the message of the Holy Prophet of Islam. Which is why, in this very famous narration, in addition to the beautiful ones you've mentioned, is that the Holy Prophet of Islam says that Hassan alayhi salam resembles my top half and Hussein alayhi salam resembles the bottom half. In that the hands are in the top half of the body and the feet are in the bottom half of the body. So if the hand writes the peace treaty, it is as if the Holy Prophet of Islam wrote it, and if the feet go towards Karbala, it's as if the Holy Prophet of Islam went towards Karbala. You know, the symbolic value of mentioning these narrations, or when the Holy Prophet says, Al-Hasan wal Hussein imaman qama aw qada, whether they stand or they sit. In that, not only the physical standing or sitting, but if they stand and go to war, and if they sit and sign the, make peace, in both cases they are imams. Or even another interpretation, whether they physically go out and announce their imamah, or they sit in their houses, there's no difference in their leadership, whether people accept them or they don't.
Thank you very much, Sayyidina. Inshallah, we will be going for another short break. After the break, inshallah, we will look at some of the characteristics of Imam al-Hasan, and inshallah we will touch upon the peace treaty of Imam al-Hasan, inshallah, even though inshallah we were hoping next week we'd look at the peace treaty in some details. Join us after this short break. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to 14 Divine Guides. I am honored, obviously, to be joined by His Eminence Sayed Zafar Abbas. We are looking at the life of the second Imam, Al-Hasan al-Mujtaba Abu Muhammad, also known as Sayyidi Shababi Ahlul Jannah, him and his brother Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. He was known for his generosity, his karam, as we name it in Arabic. What other characteristics, including generosity, did Imam al-Hasan have, knowing that a lot of the time after the Prophet's passing away, when they would look at Imam al-Hasan, they would say he resembles Rasulullah?
When we talk about any of our Aimma alayhim salam, we say that there's three particular characteristics that are present in all of them that helps us to identify the Imam.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one is very obvious, that we're all very well aware about, is that the Imam in his respective time is the most knowledgeable person. So in terms of the how to recognize is through the knowledge. The second characteristic is that of generosity, of karam. That they're the most generous. There's no person who's more generous than the Imam. And the third one is of courage. So there's no one who's more courageous, there's no one who's as brave as the Imam. So in terms of his karam, and of course as we mentioned that he's called Kareem Ahlulbayt, there's many examples of Imam Hassan alayhi salam's generosity in this regard. One very famous narrative that I frequently mention is that of a particular incident between a Hashimi and an Umawi, that they have an argument over who is the most generous amongst their tribes. So the Hashimi says that our tribe is more generous, and the Umawi says no, our tribe is more generous. So they say that to solve this matter, let's go to our respective, the high people in our tribe and ask them for money and see how much we can all gather. So the Umawi goes to his people, the people in his tribe. He goes to 10 people, and they each give him 10,000 dinars. So then in the meantime, the Hashmi also goes towards Imam Hassan alayhi salam, then he goes towards Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And both of them, in fact, Imam Hassan alayhi salam gives him 150,000 dirhams, and then when he comes to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Imam Hussain asks him how much, or had he taken money from anybody else. So he said, yes, I went to your brother Hassan alayhi salam, and he gave me 150. So Imam Hussain also gives him the same amount. He gives him 150,000. So the Umawi and the Hashmi, they return back to each other, and the Umawi has been to 10 people. They've given him 10,000 each, so he has 100,000, and the Hashimi had only gone to 2 people, and he already has 300,000. So when they return and they have this discussion, the Umawi becomes angry. He becomes angry, and he goes back to his respective people, and he gives them back their money. When the Hashimi comes back to Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain, and he wants to give back the money, they both say to him that we Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam, whatever we've given, we don't take back. So in terms of karam, in terms of generosity, and this is an example that we'll see throughout Imam's life. In fact, later on when we go into the Imam his life in the time of Muawiyah, when he's out bribing people and giving them money. So one occasion he calls Imam Hassan alayhi salam into the court, into Damascus, and Imam Hassan alayhi salam is present there. So in order to show off his wealth, Muawiyah says to the person who's in charge of the treasury, tells him, bring everything, all the money that's in the treasury. So the person brings it, and in the old days, you just used to be gold coins, so it's a bag full of the coins, and he places this very big bag in front of Imam Hassan alayhi salatu salam, and the Imam doesn't take it. But as he's walking out of the court, he notices that there's a person at the door who's turned his shoes around. So when he came in, obviously they were facing the other way, and he's turned them around so that they're facing the right way when he goes back out. So he sees this person performing this action, and he says to the treasury, the man from the treasury, he says, give this money to this person who's fixed my shoes. And he turns to Muawiyah and he says that you thought that you would be able to bribe me or to switch me by giving me all this money. This is the value that we attach to those people who fix the shoes. This kind of money is what we attach to those he did something that you would consider worthless. This is the worth of the money in our eyes. In fact, there's other narrations. For example, the most famous amongst them is that of a very old man who comes to Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, who is equally as old at this particular moment in time, and he is sitting under the tree and he's eating barley bread. Now those who've been to the Middle East and they've experienced eating barley bread, they'll know that barley bread in itself is very hard because barley doesn't have the softness of wheat. So it's a very hard bread to eat as it is. And this is dried barley bread, so it's even harder because obviously it's not fresh, it's dried. So the Imam is eating this bread, and the old man comes and he asks him for some food. And so the Imam says, look, I have this bread. If you want to have it, you can share it with me. So he takes the bread and he tries to bite it with his teeth, and of course it's very hard, he can't bite it with his teeth. So he tries to break it with his knee. And again, it's so hard that he cannot break it with his knee, so he says that this is too hard for me, I'm old, my teeth will not be able to cope. The Imam says to him, I'll give you an address of a place where you can go
And have good
to have good fresh food. So he goes to that place and he arrives at this house where there's fresh food being given out, and he sits down to eat at the sufra, and he takes one bite and he puts a little bit on the side. And so Imam Hassan alayhi salam comes and he notices that this person is, of course, the house of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. He notices that this person is taking some and he's putting it on the side. So the Imam says to him, why are you doing this? There's no need for this. Eat as much as you want to eat, and then when you leave, we'll give you more to take home with you. So this old man says, no, this is not for me. This is for this old man that I saw on the way, who gave me the address to come here. But he himself was eating very hard, dried barley bread. And it was so hard that I could not break it with my knee, so I'm taking some good food for him. And so Imam Hassan alayhi salam smiles at the old man and he says that man is my father, Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, and this is his house. He is not eating that bread out of no reason that he can't eat good food. But he's eating that bread because he says that as the Imam, as the Khalifa, he has to be somebody who is able to feel what the lowest person in his ri'ayah, the lowest person, the poorest person under his authority feels like. And that people, even till today, when you go to various places in the Middle East, will have to opt for the barley bread because it's cheaper than the bread made from wheat. Obviously, wheat being more expensive. So the Imam alayhi salam is, he's giving an education to us in leadership, that if you want to be a leader and a real leader and a true leader, and a leader according to Islam is the one who is able to relate to the person who's the poorest in his society, not the one who only associates with the rich. It's a lesson in leadership for everyone, and particularly those in the Muslim world, that the real leader and the true leader, according to the Imam alayhi salam, is the one who's able to feel what the poorest person in his society feels like, who is able to give out the good food to the poor people, to those who can't afford it, and he himself eats in such a way that he's able to demonstrate that I'm able to feel what the poorest person in my ri'ayah, the poorest person who I have control over, who I've been given authority over, I can feel what this person is going through.
Thank you, Sayyid. A very important question I think that I've had is that as much as we look at the life of Imam al-Hussein and see the oppression that took place with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, I think, I wouldn't say obviously we've given it justice, but at least with Imam al-Hussein we know what happened throughout his life. We know a lot about Imam al-Hussein. There's the 10 days of Muharram that we have every year. And sometimes I feel the oppression of Imam al-Hasan is not the fact that he was oppressed in his life, it's the fact there's more oppression, the fact that we have not done enough to learn about this Imam, to know about his life, except a few that will know he was born on the 15th, he passed away in Safar, he was martyred in Safar by poison, and that's about it. What can we do? Inshallah, we'll continue obviously our discussion in next week's show, to learn from Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam through these characteristics that one or two you've mentioned, and we mentioned a few in the previous part. What can we do more to try and give Imam al-Hasan that sort of justice that we've done him, even though we will never do justice to the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam as much as we can, but to try and give some justice back to the life of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam?
I think it's very important that we realize that in all the narrations why the Holy Prophet says Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein together, to show that they're both of their lives are equally as important for us as followers of the Holy Prophet, and that yes, Imam Hussein's tragedy is well known. We commemorate it every year in 10 days in Muharram, and we go even throughout the year when we have
Yeah,
majalis and so on and so forth. But it is a tragedy, and it is an unfortunate reality that Imam Hassan alayhi salam is neglected by those who claim to follow him, is oppressed by those who don't follow him, who has been a victim of propaganda campaigns. Again, inshallah, we'll come to in subsequent shows. But I think the reality is that the least that we can do is we can take this opportunity whenever we, have a gathering about Imam Hassan alayhi salam, whether it's in his memory of his birth or when after he's martyred, to take this opportunity to try and learn more about his life, to try and take these lessons from his childhood, his lessons from his youth, his lessons from his old age, his lessons from the peace treaty, his lessons from family life, from generosity, from bravery, so on and so forth. There's always a moment in our life where we're struggling and we're looking around for some kind of inspiration in our life. And perhaps if we focused our lives on learning about Ahlulbayt alayhimu salatu wasalam objectively, so not just as a matter of learning a story or reading about a particular narrative, but rather seeing how this particular story, how this narrative, how this narration, how this example can be a positive influence in my life. How can I take this example, this narrative, this particular action of these Imams of Ahlul Bayt, and how can I put that into my own life? How can I, really make it practical in my own life? And I think that should be the objective whenever we're reading through various, historical records and narratives. That, it's not just a story, not just an interesting thing that we're reading about, but rather how can it practically apply into our own lives. But I think that it starts from being able to know about the Imam's life, looking at the various facets, the characteristics. And of course, books are available, as you've mentioned. We've got this book on Al-Hasan in English, we have this one on the Sulh, and there's various other books as well, and I think some of them are also available online as well.
Yes.
To take some time out and learn about the Imam's lives, and read up on them and read more and more in order to try and get the maximum benefit from following these 14. And alhamdulillah, we're having these shows which goes into depth into all the infallibles, which allows us to have more insight. But we shouldn't stop here. We should keep going and you use this as a platform to build upon our knowledge for the members of Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam.
Coming to his last sort of, I think, characteristics that we could touch upon is his eloquence, and he was known for his for many narrations that he had, and many people would come and ask him when they were in tough sort of problems. They would come and ask him for their questions, and this was something that he was similar to his father Imam Ali alayhi salam.
I think if you look at the question of eloquence, and sometimes people ask the question of why is it that when we read, for example, narrations from the Holy Prophet of Islam, they seem to be very basic and simple, but when we read, for example, some of the sermons of Amirul Mu'mineen and of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, particularly his sermons to Muawiyah and replies to letters and things like that, they're very eloquent in comparison. And I think that is a testament to the Holy Prophet of Islam, that he takes people from a very primitive level into a state where they're able to understand eloquence. By the time Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam becomes the Khalifa and he delivers the sermons, they're at a level of and a high capability of understanding this kind of eloquence. And that Imam Hassan alayhi salam inherits that from his father. He inherits that from the fact that his family, Banu Hashim, have always been a family of very eloquent people. And that really eloquence in itself, if we look at the science of balagha, which up until now is taught in the Hawzat, is the ability and the art to say things using the least possible words. So it's not about talking a lot. It's in fact being brief. It's in fact saying meaningful things while continuing to be brief, without having to go on and on and on for a long time, to condense the material into the least number of words. And so that will only arise once people have been trained into understanding concepts, understanding topics really well. That's the only time when they'll be able to cope and they'll be able to explain things briefly if they know it really well. And it's a testament, in fact, the balagha and the eloquence is a testament to their knowledge. The fact that they know what they're saying so well that they're able to be brief in order to describe it.
Thank you very much, Sayyidina. On the note of eloquence, inshallah, I will leave the viewers with this story. One day, Muawiyah turned to Imam Al-Hasan and said to him, "O Abu Muhammad, I have found none to give me an answer about these three qualities." The Imam said, "What are they?" He said, "Manhood, generosity, and courage." The Imam would reply, "As for manhood, it is that man should set right the affair of his religion, undertake his properties well, spread greetings, and show affection to people. As for generosity, it is that man should give before he is asked, do favor willingly, and give food at the appropriate time. As for courage, it is that man should defend his neighbor, resist during a misfortune, and be patient during hardship." I will leave you with these lines, and inshallah we can discuss more of the eloquence of Imam Al-Hasan with His Eminence Sayed Zafar Abbas. I thank him for tonight's episode, and inshallah we will see you next week. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.